Welcome to CBS Sports HQ. It's the eve of a couple of things, Major League Baseball, but it's also the eve of the Sweet 16. And it's the first time every team is from a power conference. And while there are no Cinderellas, there are plenty of blockbuster matchups. 4 games on Thursday, 4 more on Friday. Only one coach right now is coaching a team where he won a national championship, despite all this power, and it's Michigan State's Tom Izzo. No other coach has won a national championship with the team they're coaching right now. Let's start with the very first game of the week. It's Thursday night. It's on CBS. And this might be the most explosive game of the tournament. BYU and Alabama, 2 of the best offensive teams in the country, both averaging over 85 points per game in the tournament. The betting total is 175.5. Might be the first one to 90 to win that game. How about 2 teams that are lucky to be here? Maryland needed a buzzer beater against Colorado State. Florida needed a late comeback against the then 2-time defending champion UConn Huskies. Redemption on the minds of Duke fans as they face Caleb Love in Arizona. Love helped end Coach K's career a couple of years ago, handed him a loss in his final home game and a loss in his final game period in the Final Four when he played for North Carolina. Final game on Thursday features the only team seeded higher than 6. It's the 10th seeded Arkansas Razorbacks against Texas Tech. The Hogs have pulled off back-to-back upsets for Coach Cal. They beat Bill Self in Kansas, Rick Pitino in St. John's. Texas Tech has beaten 2 double-digit seeds. Friday will begin with Ole Miss facing Michigan State. Mentioned that Izzo, the only coach coaching his current team where he's won a national championship, and the Spartans have won 10 straight games in the tournament against SEC opponents. How about the 3rd meeting of the season between Kentucky and Tennessee? The Vols favored in this game despite losing both regular season games to Kentucky, a matchup of 2 and 3 seeds. The tournament's #1 overall seed still looking to regain their form from the first 3 months of the season as Auburn faces Michigan. The Tigers have struggled at points in each of their first 2 games. Janai Broome, who averaged 18 a game in the regular season, only averaging 11 a game in the postseason in the NCAA Tournament. Purdue and Houston, the last game of the Sweet 16, a de facto home game for the Boilermakers. They get to play in their home state of Indiana. This game is in Indianapolis against the top seed there in the Midwest region, the Houston Cougars. All right, let's take a look at the list that B.J. Taylor put together entering the tournament. B.J. Taylor, former UCF great, ranking the top 10, and then some honorable mentions. And Bennett Sturts really showed out for Drake, and now on the move with his head coach, Ben McCullum, to Iowa. But having to rearrange things a little bit, ranking his top 5 players from the Sweet 16 because a lot of those guys are gone, like John Tonje at Wisconsin, who was knocked out by BYU. All right, let's get BJ in here, and let's start with Michigan's Vlad Golden, who is your #5 ranked player and a guy that college basketball fans are familiar with because he was on that ride with his head coach Dusty May at FAU a couple of years ago to the Final Four.
Absolutely. Vlad Golden has been a centerpiece for the Michigan Wolverines and their 5-game win streak going into the Big Ten tournament. They obviously were able to capture a Big Ten Conference Tournament championship, and it's been led by Vlad Golden in the front court. 23 points, 12 rebounds in their win in the round of 32 against Texas A&M. This is a guy in a day and age where you see perimeter being the focus, you see 3-point shooting being the focus, you see guys wanting to spread the floor, even the big guys shooting threes. Vlad Golden is an old school big. He gets it done an old-fashioned way, and he also has a tremendous running mate in the front court with him, and Danny Wolf, who's not bad in his own right. If Michigan wants to pull an upset over the Auburn Tigers, the #1 overall seed in this tournament, they're going to need those 2 to be big. Trey Donaldson at the point guard position to play well, but Vlad Golden is going to have to win his matchup against Janai Broome, something we have not seen a lot of this season.
Interesting note there at the bottom of the screen that you might have saw. First Michigan player with 20-plus points, 10-plus rebounds, 3-plus blocks in a tournament game since Chris Webber in the infamous too many timeouts game for against North Carolina in the title game back in '93. Your #4 ranked player is the one who gave us the buzzer beater in the first weekend of the tournament. It's Derek Queen for Maryland, who said, "I want the MFing ball." He got it and put it in.
Two amazing quotes. He said, "I want the MFing ball" at the end of the game, and they asked him, they said, "Derek, where does that confidence come from to make those kind of plays late in the game?" He said, "I'm from Baltimore." Greatest quote I heard all weekend. But outside of just giving us great quotes, he's also a terrific player on the floor. If you have not seen the Maryland Terrapins play all season, they have a top 5 pick in this year's upcoming draft in their 6'10" freshman. He is the most talented big left in this tournament. When you look at his ability to dominate inside, he has a terrific touch around the rim, as well as he showed on that game winner. He can also put the ball on the deck, get to the rim, and finish at the cup. The leader of a tremendous starting 5 that the Terrapins possess. But going up in this matchup against Florida, they are not the better team, as we know. But sometimes you need the best player on the floor to be the best player, and that can sometimes propel you over even the better team.
He has 5 20-10 games this season. That's more than anybody freshman-wise in the country, even more than Cooper Flagg, who I'm sure is coming up on this list in just a second. At number 3, it's a guy that you, I believe, have moved down, and it's Auburn's Johni Broome, who doesn't look 100% right now.
Yeah, he hasn't looked 100% in about the past month, right? It just seems like this Auburn team hasn't been 100% as a group. They've shown flashes of the team that they were through the first 3.5 months of the season, but over the last month just have not looked the same. But I'm still going to go with Johni Broome at 3rd because of his production throughout the totality of the season, all right? Whenever you're able to put up nearly 20 points per game, add in 11 rebounds, and toss in a couple blocks, all right, and be the SEC Player of the Year in a year where the SEC, some consider to be the best basketball conference that we've ever seen, you've got to continue to put him in that top 3 players list. And Auburn has done what they need to do to get to this point, all right? They made it to the Sweet 16. They still haven't played their best basketball yet. Todd Pettiford played well in their last game, as well as Chad Baker-Mazar. Those guys are coming along with Johni Broome. I still have him at number 3 because I think he'll play big in the biggest moments.
And that game is Friday against Vlad Golden's Michigan team. Should be a great matchup there. How about Florida? We mentioned Derek Queen. They're taking on the Maryland Terrapins, and you have Walter Clayton Jr. here as your number 2 ranked player remaining in the Sweet 16. And, man, they needed him late against UConn.
I mean, he's been absolutely sensational, Chris. What Walter Clayton Jr. has been able to do has been nothing short of remarkable. I mean, the run that he's been on since about the last 2 weeks of the regular season, carried that into SEC tournament play, and now into the NCAA tournament with those 2 big threes he made against the UConn Huskies to really put that game away. There isn't a player in college basketball that's playing better than this guy is right now. He has full control of the game. He gets his shot off when he wants, and you see these difficult looks that he takes. He makes these kind of shots on the regular. At this time of year, you want to make a run, you want to push into the Final Four, you need big shot takers, you need big shot makers. Walter Clayton Jr. is that guy.
13 points in the final 8 minutes of that comeback win against UConn. I feel like Florida was the sexy pick by a lot of people going into the tournament because of how well they were playing. But Duke has been the favorite when it started. Duke is still the favorite right now, and Cooper Flagg is your number 1 ranked player.
And this is not because of his NBA potential, all right? Cooper Flagg is my number 1 player in college basketball. If you were drafting a college basketball team and saying, look, this is the guy you want to start your team with, not just because he has potential to be a great player, but because he is already a tremendously productive player. When you talk about a guy for the Duke Blue Devils that leads them in every major statistical category, points, rebounds, blocks, assists, steals, he probably leads them in high fives, all right? He leads them in everything. This guy has been absolutely sensational. He is not only their most productive player on the floor, he is their competitive leader. He is the heart and soul of how they approach each and every day in practice. You can tell when he is on the floor, when he gets going, he is the guy they lean on for motivation. He is the guy they lean on to get them going. So as good as he is and as good as he's going to be in the NBA, he has been just as good at the college level. Cooper Flagg is my number 1 player right now in college basketball.
And if not for reclassifying, he'd be getting ready for his senior high school prom right now.
Those high schoolers be getting tormented right now.
Unbelievable.
He saved a lot of high schoolers from a lot of bad nights of sleep, all right?
B.J. Taylor with his top 5 players remaining in the Sweet 16, which gets going on Thursday and Friday. You can watch every game live on the March Madness Live app. CBS will have 2 games on Thursday and 2 on Friday as well. But again, all of those games, even the games on CBS, will be right there on the March Madness Live app.
You're watching HQ Spotlight. I'm Jacqueline D'Agostino. Mackenzie Brooks is joining us because we are doing a second chance bracket for Sportsline, but you have a little bit of beef with this phrasing.
A second chance. I mean, we're in the 98th percentile right now. I don't know how many second chances we need. We're pretty much rocking and rolling outside of Clemson with going down early, but second chance is an interesting way to put this, but I'm in. I'm still in.
Essentially what we're doing, whether we're calling it second chance or not, is we're looking at all the teams that are still in the field in the Sweet 16, and then moving forward, looking at the percentages, how the Sportsline model views all these teams, and we're going to go all the way through from the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, a Final Four, and then we're going to crown a national champion, and we'll see if maybe it's different based off of what we saw rounds 1 and 2. So let's get cracking, and we are going to start, of course, with Auburn, Michigan, Ole Miss, Michigan State. So walk us through here in the South region how you have things shaking out to move forward to the Elite Eight.
So Auburn, we make this one of the more comfortable wins of the Sweet 16. We give them a 71% chance to win, make it almost a 10-point game with Michigan here. Michigan does a lot of things well, right? And they have awesome bigs, but those awesome bigs also like to turn the ball over, right? And that plays right into Auburn here. This is the first team that's really going to give guys like Danny Wolf a run for their money. So we do like Auburn comfortably coming out of this. Ole Miss, Michigan State. Michigan State, we do give a decently comfortable chance too. Projected score is 76-71, so around a 5-6 point game here. Ole Miss is just playing above their head right now. Their shooting numbers are phenomenal, and I give them their flowers for that, but at some point, regression to the mean is you come back down. And for what it's worth, Tom Izzo 9-0 against SEC teams in March. So gotta love that here. So then we get an Auburn, Michigan State Elite Eight.
And we all have to hope that for our good friend Tim Doyle, Ole Miss doesn't keep on dancing, because we know that his Twitter mentions, or X mentions, if you will, are absolutely through the roof. All right, my favorite part. We have Florida against the Crab Five. If I hear one more thing about the Crab Five, I'm literally going to lose it. But I digress. And then Texas Tech and Coach Cal kind of doing the impossible, or what it seems like, with Arkansas. But let's start with the Florida Gators in Maryland. Where's the Sportsline model at? Because I know they've been kind of high on the Crab Five, you know, so just do the right thing here, Mackenzie.
So listen, as far as like who has a greater than 50% chance to win this game, absolutely Florida, right? We make the score 77-74. I will say a 3-point game,
that's tight,
is a lot tighter than some of the other 1-seed draws that we're seeing in the Sweet 16. Florida has the depth, right? That was always the concern with Maryland, 100%. Florida is just an objectively better team in a lot of important statistical categories, right? Maryland does have a great defense, and I think they will win the turnover battle, right? We've seen Florida, we've seen them get a little bit messy, and you've seen as well. It's what's Clayton. What is Clayton going to do? Bro. Truly is a big part of what we're going to see from this matchup. So yes, we have Florida winning. 100% think it is the tightest 1-seed matchup we will see in the Sweet 16. As far as Texas Tech, Arkansas got a pretty solid draw with the teams they've got to play so far. Kansas, St. John's, teams that play right into their strengths, right? St. John's beat St. John's. We all saw that. I don't know if that was Arkansas beating St. John's and playing phenomenal defense. I think that's just St. John's realizing that, I don't know, some may say they weren't supposed to be a 2-seed.
And the Sportsline model wasn't really high on St. John's the entire time.
Yeah, someone's got to be the villain, okay? And that was us. Texas Tech, we love Texas Tech, high on all of them, top 10 in a lot of metrics that honestly just matter. I think they can give Arkansas a pretty big run for their money, so we make that projected score 80-71, a 9-point win for Texas Tech here, giving us a Florida-Texas Tech Elite Eight.
All right, so we have Florida moving on, Texas Tech moving on. Let's go to the East region, because this has been talked about for Duke, who is the 1-seed in this region, as like the easiest path for them to get to a Final Four. Caleb Love has the chance to do something absolutely hilarious. Maybe we'll see him do it again. I don't know. But we have Duke in Arizona, and then BYU and Bama. Walk us through Duke, Arizona. Where's the Sportsline model at? Can Arizona get it done? Do they feel that way? I love how I'm saying they, like it's a person.
I know. We just do love Duke, and I've talked about it since Selection Sunday, right? The path they've had. I mean, they are just better than you than every single category they're going to play out. We give them the 5% edge in all shooting, 3-point, 2-point, all of those things. They have two guys that are really hot from deep right now. It's really hard to stop. So do like Arizona, we do give Duke the 76% chance. So one of those more comfortable 1-seed wins that you're going to see here. Now BYU, Alabama. Again, as far as who has the greater than 50% chance to win, Alabama. But is this another close game? Yes. Alabama 84, BYU 83, okay? They can stay in this game. BYU can shoot really, really well from 3. They just have to come out on fire doing so. Alabama's 3-point defense has gotten so much better than last year. That was always a problem for them. But again, if BYU can shoot like 35% from 3. I think that's the threshold that keeps them in this game. I think this is a very live upset as well. But again, as far as the over 50% chance, we give Alabama around the 54% there.
All right, now to the Midwest region. We got Houston, Purdue, Kentucky, Tennessee, a little SEC on SEC. You can kind of just rip through this region, Kens, and tell us who has the better percentage and who is going to move on to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, as far as Houston, Purdue, I think Purdue has kind of gotten an easiest draw, right?
Yeah.
You play High Point, you play McNeese. I think this might be a punch in the mouth when you come and play Houston here. Not only is Houston a very physical defense, they also now have an offense this year to complement that. Purdue
and they're healthy.
And they're healthy,
yes.
Knock on wood. If they stay healthy, they can go very far here. Purdue can be very vulnerable with their 2-point defense when they're playing solid teams. We saw them allow like 91%, 70%, 70% through a stretch of February. That could be really scary when you're seeing your first, big boy team here with Houston.
All right, Kentucky, Tennessee. I have Tennessee going all the way to the Final Four in one of my brackets. I don't know, maybe that's just me being a little crazy, but yeah. Kentucky, they have great wins, but also great losses in the regular season. Where's the model at on this matchup?
This is a hard spot for Kentucky. To beat the same team 3 times is really hard to do. And when you look at the ways that Kentucky beat them, the first 2 times, they were shooting like over 50% from 3. I'll have respect to Kentucky and those wins. That's just really hard to do again. What are the odds that you can beat Tennessee in that way for a 3rd time in a row? So we're going to go with Tennessee here.
Yeah, and that's, what it's like when you have, 7 teams in the SEC that are going to the Sweet 16. You're bound to see somebody again. All right, we have an Elite Eight, Auburn, Michigan State, Florida, Texas Tech. Who is moving on to the Final Four?
It's going to be Auburn here. I know this is the year of the chalk. I know we're going through this and you're like 1 seed, whatever. But I mean, that's historical in itself, right? The dominance we're seeing from those top 4 teams is truly incredible. Michigan State just not going to have, they have great guards. They're not going to have the same bigs to compete with this Auburn team, in my opinion. And we'll go down to Florida, Texas Tech. Again, I think Florida, Texas Tech could give them a run for their money here, but again, Florida always will have that depth on top of you here, so that's why we do like them here. We make the projected score 81-77. So again, another close game.
Yeah, tight. Okay, so we went a little chalk on those 2 regions. What about Duke, Bama, Houston, Tennessee? Out of here, are the 1 seeds moving on, or do we get some 2 seeds in the mix in the Final Four?
Duke's going all the way. I mean, we make this, you'd be shocked that this was a 2 seed. We make Duke 10-point victors in this game here because Duke is just going to neutralize anything you do well, they can do better. And they'll play to any style that you want to play at, slow, fast, whatever the case may be. They're just more talented and will typically have the most talented player on the court there.
All right, Houston, Tennessee, who moves on?
I think this will be a close one. I could see Tennessee potentially pulling this out. This should be a slow, ugly game here. But again, Houston just with that slight edge here. Although Tennessee's offense has improved, it has not improved at the same level that Houston's has.
All right, so we have a Final Four. We have Auburn, Florida, Duke, Houston.
I know it's not fun.
All 1 seeds. Woo! A little chalky, but as a Florida fan, I dig it. I might not dig what you have next. Who is going to the national championship between the Auburn Tigers and Florida in this SEC showdown?
Okay, I swear week to week this literally changes. It's like 50% in the model, and then we have to round and pick a winner. So right now, the winner currently of that game is going to be Auburn. You did see Florida shoot better than them in that matchup during the SEC regular season, but Auburn, they had the edge in rebounds and turnovers. To me, that's something you can replicate again. Florida was shooting a little bit above their ceiling in that game, which makes me think that's not as replicable than having the rebound and turnover advantage. But again, 50-50. This is seriously going to be a major pick 'em game.
I just have a few words for the model because Auburn lost 3 of the last 4 going into the tournament. And if we remember, Florida went into the jungle and beat Auburn by a whole lot when they were the #1 team in the country. And I know you're saying the rebound battle, but I think Chinyelu and Alex Condon and Thomas Houck are going to have a lot to say about the rebounding battle. Turnovers, I digress. I've seen Walter Clayton turn the ball over more times than I'd like.
A lot of these games will be, what are you getting from Clayton? Truly, that's what it comes down to.
And he is a first-team All-American, the first Gator to ever do that for an absolute reason. So I am trusting him with my life. We got to move on, Mackenzie. Duke, Houston, who's going to the Natty?
This is all Duke again for us. They played last year in the spot. You saw Duke with the right game plan to do so, and I think there's no reason they won't be able to do that again. In a lot of situations, it is hard to beat the same team twice, which might be why we see Auburn over Florida. But as the case of Duke, just an absolute unicorn juggernaut moving through this tournament.
All right, so we have Auburn, we have Duke. I'm so curious because this go around, what happens with these two teams?
Well, you know that no team has won the last 3 or 4 games has ever won the national championship. We've heard that stat 9 million times, so we have to go with Duke here. Again, you saw these teams play earlier. You saw Duke win by 6 points. They had the rebounding edge. They had the 2-point percentage edge.
Excuse me,
and
I think I'm like allergic to Duke winning the national championship.
I know,
I'm like
lame.
Here.
But listen, you got to pick Cooper Flag or Broom, and I'm going to go with Flag in this situation.
Yeah, Cooper Flag has led Duke in every single statistical category, which is absolutely bananas. And this was the Sportsline pick before the Sweet 16, correct?
Nothing's really changed here. I know it's a boring chalk bracket, but we've just seen a boring chalk, underwhelming year, respectfully. I know, it's not fun.
Kenzie, I'm allergic to chalk too.
I'll wrap us out of here.
Yeah. Kenzie, if you don't want to take it, I'm literally choking.
All right, let's go. March Madness. You can watch the Sweet 16 Thursday and Friday on CBS, streaming on Paramount Plus. Catch us there.
Welcome back to CBS Sports HQ. How sweet it is to watch more hoops on CBS. Our Chip Patterson power ranking all 16 teams left standing as the basketball resumes tomorrow across our CBS platforms. A lot of powerhouse teams in this mix, but none standing taller, according to Chip Patterson, than the Duke Blue Devils, who have been led by their freshman sensation Cooper Flag, was just named the Oscar Robinson National Player of the Year and the Wayman Tisdale Award given to the best freshman of the year. You know, there was about a point 2 weeks ago where we didn't even know if we'd see Cooper Flag suit up for Duke again. He had that ankle injury, and instead he has turned things up in his first NCAA tournament. Flag, moments ago, reflecting on the journey to get here.
This is just something I dreamed about ever since I was a little kid. These are the moments that I imagined myself being when I was in the driveway, things like that. So just a surreal feeling to, be here in these moments and have these opportunities. I just feel really blessed.
No surprise he's feeling blessed. He's had an incredible start to his college career. I'm sure he'll do the same at the NBA level as we welcome you into our CBS Sports HQ studios. We got BJ Taylor in the house alongside Tommy Tran. I'm Haley Sutton. BJ, I'm going to give you a couple players. We're going to do some breakdowns here when it comes to the Sweet 16 action. We're going to pick it up with Cooper Flag. Of course, they are taking on an Arizona team that has Caleb Love in the mix, and I want to make sure I get this right because Duke and Arizona are the first Sweet 16 matchup between two teams averaging 90 or more points a game. Obviously large in part there due to those two players, Caleb Love and Cooper Flag. What are you anticipating out of that matchup?
Well, this is going to be a lot of fun, right? I mean, you've got two of the biggest brands in college basketball, Arizona Wildcats, the Duke Blue Devils. You've got Cooper Flag, the most popular player in college basketball. You have Caleb Love, who's a top 5 most popular player in college basketball, going back to his UNC days. This is a rematch of a game we had in November where Duke came out on top in an actually low-scoring game, but we know Arizona is a different team from now. They've made some changes to their lineup since then. They hit their stride midway through Big 12 play. So this matchup is going to be a lot of fun because we all know what Cooper Flag is and what he presents. But this guy right here, he is who I like to call icy hot.
Okay.
All right, and I call him icy hot because when he's hot, he's as good as anybody in the country. But when he's cold, he can ice your knees, he can ice your back, and he can shoot your team out of a game. He's either really, really good or really, really bad. There's no in-between with this guy. But when he's special, he's absolutely sensational. And like we said, we know what Cooper Flag brings to the table as not only the 2B #1 pick in the NBA draft, but also the #1 most productive player in college basketball with all the things he brings to the Duke Blue Devils.
So what you're saying is you never know what love you're going to get. Ooh. And if you're an Arizona Wildcat, you're hoping it's the good love against Cooper Flag in the Sweet 16. If we move on to Michigan and Auburn, my friend. I tried to be with you guys here on set. Vlad Golden, Janai Broom, the big fella matchup here. Break it down for us.
This feels like an 80s game, right? 90s game where we're talking about two big fellas about to go at it underneath the rim, and Vlad Golden, one of the better big men right there with Derek Queen coming out of the Big Ten. And then we have Janai Broom, the guy who's been the premier post player in college basketball all season long, the only guy to really challenge Cooper Flag for being the National Player of the Year. This is going to be an interesting matchup between these two because both of their teams rely on them so much for production. Both of them are close to being 20-point and 10-rebound a game guys. What we've got to watch for is how the other two front court players play around these two guys. All right, Danny Wolf for Michigan is their second most productive player. He helps lead them in assists. He's one of their better rebounders, and he can also stretch the floor to the three-point line, whereas Auburn has Dylan Cardwell inside, 6'11", 250 pounds. He's a big body, beefy guy. he's going to draw a lot of the matchups against Vlad Golden, not as much Janai Broome early on. They're going to put a lot of weight on Dylan Cardwell to try to limit Vlad Golden. I don't think you can completely stop him because he's so good at finishing around the rim and getting on the offensive glass, but he's going to really meet his match with a guy like Dylan Cardwell, who is an extremely stout defender in the paint. I believe Auburn averages nearly 6 blocks per game. They're one of the best rim protecting teams in the country. So for Michigan, this is a tough matchup because kind of what they do well with scoring inside is kind of one of Auburn's strengths. They're good at protecting the rim, and they're good at getting you off the three-point line.
Vlad Golden, one of FAU's leading scorers from a year ago when they made that awesome Final Four run. And in fact, all of those players are scoring 15 or more points for all of the Sweet 16 teams. So we'll have to keep our eye on that. If we move ahead, BJ, you know me. I'm a sucker for a good nickname at any point. We're talking about the Crab Five. Like, shout out to whoever came up with that. Big fan. They're taking on a Gators squad who the conversation all year long has been depth, 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 right? If they are healthy and their depth is operating on all cylinders, they're the best team in the country. So when you look at the matchup between a Maryland team that just won on a buzzer beater versus this full-strength Florida team, what do you think?
I mean, it's crazy to think about. Outside of Duke, if teams in college basketball could only play 5 players, Maryland would arguably be the second best team in the country behind the Duke Blue Devils. That's the only team with more talent in the starting lineup than them. When you look at Maryland, what they provide in the backcourt, Jacoby Gillespie, a veteran transfer from Belmont, a Selden Miguel, a leading scorer for the South Florida Bulls a year ago. They have a Rodney Rice, and then you complement that with a Julian Reese inside, who's a double-digit scorer, second leading rebounder, and then you have a top 5 pick in this year's NBA draft and a lot of mock drafts in Derek Queen, a guy who's only getting more and more confident. You got to talk about that shot. It's one of the best shots I've seen for a game winner in March Madness in a long time. He's absolutely exceptional. And then if you're Florida, we know what they have in the backcourt with Walter Clayton. We know they have Elijah Martin, the FAU transfer. Alex Condon, handles the interior. But they have pieces off the bench. They have a Thomas Howell. They have a Denzel Aberdeen. These guys combine for 17 points, 5 rebounds a game. That's a lot of production in college basketball when you can get nearly 20 points of production from your bench. The question is going to be, can Maryland stay out of foul trouble, and can Florida put them into foul trouble? Because 90% of the offensive production from Maryland is coming from that Crab Five.
Yeah, Florida, they had just beaten UConn, which they had a lot of comparisons to this UF team. To the Huskies team that won back-to-back national championships. All right, let's get to Purdue and Houston. We all know about that Go Cougs defense, BJ. It is tough. It is elite. On the flip side, for the Boilermakers, Braden Smith, what type of matchup stands out to you between him and that defense?
This is going to be absolutely electric, okay? If you're a real college basketball fan, if you're somebody who enjoys seeing teams execute at a high level, this is the game for you to watch because nobody executes their defensive principles and their defensive schemes better than a Kelvin Sampson-led Houston basketball team. They have 2 principles that they will run every single game no matter who they play. They will trap the ball screens and they will trap the ball in the post, all right? It doesn't matter if you're a 20-point per game scorer or you're a 2-point per game scorer. They call it monster. And they are going to look to be monsters on Braden Smith's ball screens, the Big Ten Player of the Year, the heart and soul of the Purdue Boilermakers, and the captain of their ship. He gets everything going for the rest of their group. They have a Trey Kaufman-Wren inside who can be effective, but it all starts with Braden Smith. What can Houston do to stifle Braden Smith, as he is not going to have seen a defense like this with the physicality, with the tenacity, with the resiliency, with the tenaciousness as Houston, okay? And I'm a man speaking from personal experience. I played Houston every year when I was in college. They get after you. All right? They get after you. So Braden Smith is going to have to make sure that he's very, very strong with the ball and that he drags out those traps. He works his way around, and guys like Fletcher Lawyer, Trey Kaufman-Wren inside, they're going to have big days because Houston is going to make it very, very difficult on Braden Smith to get off and have one of his better games. I think Houston puts a lot of pressure on them. I think Braden Smith's an exceptional player, but they're going to need some X-factor guy that usually doesn't give them production to play really, really well if they want to pull the upset against one of the best defenses in college basketball.
Man, we got some good basketball on deck. I said it at the top of the show, it's always so hard to wait for the Sweet 16, but it is going to be worth it.
We are here.
BJ Taylor's fired up. We're fired up for all of the madness. It resumes tomorrow. Of course, it all gets underway with Alabama BYU. Holy offense. We'll talk about that in just a bit. It picks up again on Friday with that SEC showdown. A reminder, you can catch all of the action live on the March Madness Live app.
Well, the 2025 college basketball transfer portal is officially open. For the next month, players putting their names on the market looking for new homes. Last year, more than 2,000 players hit the portal. We're once again expecting another massive amount of transfers this season. You look at the list right there. Already players making some moves. That portal will close on Tuesday, April 22nd. BJ Taylor joining us now on HQ Spotlight. We're going to play a game. But first, I got to ask a pretty serious question. So you look at the transfer portal, and it really is changing college sports in many ways, NIL as well.
Right.
You look at the Sweet 16 this year. First time since 2007, no 11 seed or lower is in the Sweet 16. You just gave me a fact as well about...
Yeah, there's only one team higher than a 6 seed left in the NCAA tournament, and it's number 10 Arkansas, led by John Calipari.
Right, which is not a
far
Cinderella story.
Far from a Cinderella story.
At all. So is there a concern when it comes to the future of March Madness that because of the transfer portal, we're going to miss some of those amazing moments and those Cinderella stories?
I don't feel that way. I'm not in the same boat as people who feel that March Madness is in some sort of jeopardy in terms of the fact that we're not seeing the same number of Cinderellas. I don't think that will continue. We will not have the same number of Cinderella teams advancing, but with that being said, you still get incredible games. You still have some of the best matchups in college basketball, right? We want to see the best teams play against each other. All 4 of the number 1 seeds this year are still alive. We have 15 of the 16 teams that are under a 6 seed still left playing. So I know we all live for the Cinderella. We live for the VCU and the Florida Gulf Coast and Dunk City, right, and all those incredible games. I feel like if we get the best matchups at the end of the season with the better teams, right? Could you imagine if somehow we got to the Final Four in San Antonio and we actually had Houston versus Duke and we had Florida Auburn, right? That'd be incredible. That'd be incredible games, right? Incredible basketball. So yeah, with mid majors being poached consistently now by high majors due to NIL, due to the portal, we won't see the same caliber of teams coming out of the mid majors, but the high major basketball will continue to excel and just get even better.
And you look at it from a player perspective as well. You know, some of these guys not getting recruited out of high school by some of the big teams, although, you know, recruiting now is unbelievable. It's very different. But they're now getting an opportunity to go to these top programs and have a chance to make it far.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they have a chance to go on and play at some of these better schools. And, I mean, there's a lot of discussion around, oh, well, the mid-majors are being poached and it's not right. Well, the best player should go play at the better school, right? If you're a player that can go play at a high major school, go play. I know we love to see guys stay at one school for a longer time, but that's just not the environment we have now. It's a different game. It's a different day and age, and we all have to adapt and get with it because the college basketball game is still a beautiful game. It's still a lot of fun. It's very enjoyable for everybody that's tuned in. So I feel as though there's a lot of conversation around, we're not going to have the 3 or 4 year player. We're not going to get to know him. No, and you're not. And those stories were incredible, but you just got to accept the game for what it is right now.
Okay, you mentioned the game.
Yeah, my mind's been on this game.
It is time to play this game. It's called Name That Team. This is going to be very difficult.
Okay.
But I believe in you.
You believe in me. Have faith.
I have so much faith. And it all goes back to the transfers, okay?
Okay.
So we have 4 teams that are now in the Sweet 16,
nice.
Okay? And one by one, we are going to name a team. So this is Team A.
Yes.
And we will discuss which team has this starting 5 of players that have transferred in.
Very interesting here. Of all the teams left in the Sweet 16?
Yes, and I gave you a tip before that I actually don't know
if it's correct.
True.
I don't think it's correct.
It is not.
If your tip was correct, this is a different group.
It is not.
With Vanderbilt, Louisville, Ole Miss, Virginia Tech, that's tough. We're going to have to be...
Do you need a hint?
I need a hint. Can I fall in a favor?
Okay, you can. The hint is their leading scorer on this team
Louisville, Ole Miss
is from Virginia Tech.
From Virginia Tech?
Yes.
That's still brutal. I'm going to have to go just so we can keep the game moving here.
Okay, the leading scorer's initials are
going deep.
SP.
Sean Padula. This is Ole Miss.
Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. We're on the board.
The first one. Okay, so now you get it.
Yeah.
You're feeling confident.
Feel good about this game. I like this game.
Ole Miss going up against Michigan State. Real quick before we move on to the next team, what's your thought about that matchup?
I'm excited to see Michigan State's strength in numbers. I'm excited to see their depth go up against Ole Miss in this group we talked about. Sean Padula. They also have Jemiah Murray over here, who's a tremendous player. I think Michigan State's too strong. A lot of people are down on Izzo because he has not won a national title since the year 2000. I think they're too strong for this Ole Miss team.
All right. Moving on to the next
I'm
one.
1-0.
You're 1-0.
I didn't get it wrong.
You didn't.
Okay. This is Florida.
Oh, boom.
Bang. Bang!
What gave it away?
Yeah.
What gave it away?
I'm good at this game now. I know where we're going. I got it.
Oh,
So it just took a little while. Walter
Okay.
Clayton Jr., we got Elijah Martin here from FAU, Real Card, Chinny Lou, Alex Condon. Yeah. Immediately Florida.
Easy. No
I
questions
just
asked.
had to get in the groove.
You
right?
got in the groove
Once
there.
I got a feel for
I was
this, I'm good
excited
to go
give
now.
you my Iona Walter Clayton Jr.
Yeah.
fun fact over there, but that's fine. Okay, so we all know big matchup coming up against Maryland for the Gators. How's it going to play out?
Well, this is all about the starting five of Maryland versus the depth that Florida possesses, all right? Maryland has one of the best starting fives in college basketball, led by Derek Queen. They have a Belmont transfer and Jacoby Gillespie in the backcourt. Selma Miguel came in from USF. They get over 90% of their offensive production from their starting five. The question is going to be, are they fatigued at this point of the season? Those guys all play about more than 35 minutes per game. Florida, on the other hand, has a Thomas Howell off the bench. They have other pieces that they bring in that provide value to their team. It's going to be a game of, can Florida get Maryland in foul trouble, and can Derek Queen be the best player on the floor because he's a lottery pick in this year's NBA draft?
Fantastic. Okay, we're moving on to...
That was quick, right?
That was quick. We're looking at Team C now. It might get a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
Let me know if you
This
need...
is Campbell. If you didn't know that, it's a Campbell in the middle.
That
Yep.
I did not know, but this is what we're all learning here.
100%. This looks to me, you got UNC, you have Alabama. This looks Alabama.
Nope.
Tennessee.
Nope.
This is, oh my gosh, no way.
Okay, their
No way.
leading scorer is from North Carolina.
This is Arizona.
This is Arizona. We got Caleb Love over there. Arizona.
That was too good of a hint. I don't feel good about that one.
Okay, but you
I don't.
needed it.
I feel like you're telling me that was North Carolina leading scorer, Caleb Love, the sensation, the man who ended Coach K's tenure as a Duke Blue Devil in the Final Four, getting to match up against the Duke Blue Devils once again. Now, these two teams matched up earlier in the season. Duke won a 69-55 game. The thing to keep in mind is Arizona was a completely different team at that point in the season. They didn't hit their stride until about mid-December, heading into conference play. Caleb Love has been playing some of the best basketball of his career, and that's saying something considering how well he played for North Carolina on that run. The matchup to watch in this game is what can Arizona produce against that front court of Duke, Cooper Flagg, Tamon Malawach, two of the more stout bigs in college basketball. It's going to be a lot of fun to see these two teams go at it.
I'm not going to give you
any more hints
next time.
Okay, so I'm 2-1. I don't count. That doesn't count.
You can do better.
I got that wrong.
Let's see. We're going to go to Team D now.
Okay, we got a little San Diego State action. We got a little Oklahoma here, a Drexel, a Dayton.
You're crossing teams off the list, all right?
Yeah, these get way harder when all five guys are complete transfer portal guys.
Do you know what logo that is over there? The fourth logo over here?
It's a Drexel Dragon.
No.
Oh, this here in the middle?
Yeah.
He looks like an angry Woody Woodpecker, but hey, he's a great mascot.
Delaware.
Oh, that's a Delaware guy.
That's
okay,
Delaware
nice.
guy.
Yeah. Love Delaware. Beautiful place. Great restaurant.
I almost went to college there.
Fantastic food. That's what I've heard. I feel that.
It is. Do you need a hint? I'm not going to give you which team the leading scorer is from.
Yes.
Oh, actually, I am, because the other hint would be too good. The leading scorer on this team came from Oklahoma.
The leading scorer on this team. This is Kentucky. Yep, we have Lamont Butler over there from San Diego State, Otega Oweh from Oklahoma. Kobe Bray was a Dayton Flyer. I did one of Kobe Bray's games with Chris Hassel.
Oh, did you?
Yes, when he was a Dayton Flyer. See, it's just hard when they all get mixed up together and you're looking at a bunch of logos.
This is the day and age.
And you have angry Woody Woodpecker just eyeing you right here. It's not easy. It's not easy as it looks, people. But this Kentucky team, Mark Pope in his first season, assembling this group of transfers and having them play the kind of basketball that he was able to implement out at BYU has been absolutely impressive. It's a major reason why he was a Coach of the Year candidate for so long, because these guys do not play like five guys who just came together this season. They play like five guys who you think have been together for a very long while. Led by Lamont Butler at point guard, Otega Oweh is their leading scorer. He's the guy they go to in late shot clock situations. And Kobe Bray, one of the premier shooters in college basketball, going up against a stout Tennessee defense, one of the top 5 defenses in college basketball. This is going to be a fun game just because of the contrast of styles. Does defense win out with Tennessee, or can Kentucky's offense produce points? It's going to be a fun one.
A 7:39 p.m. tip on Friday. We got some fun basketball heading our way. Congratulations.
I did good.
That was really good. You did well out there. That is not easy. Success, not failure. That's how we're rolling here at CBS Sports HQ. We can play this game all day because this is the world we live in now with transfers. It's like, whose team is this? Well, they've all found success together, and that is what matters the most. All those teams we just discussed making it to the Sweet 16. All the action Thursday, Friday. You can find it on CBS and, of course, streaming on Paramount+.
Less than 24 hours away from tip-off of the Sweet 16, the actual geographic regions coming more into play now. And before we dive into the matchups, let's look at some of the noteworthy trends from the first weekend of the tournament. And if this Sweet 16 tastes a bit chalky, you can thank Derek Queen, whose buzzer beater lifted Maryland past the 12-seed Colorado State, ushering out the last of the Cinderellas. And for the first time ever, no team seeded 11 or worse has made it out of the first weekend. All right, the Big 10, Big 12, SEC, and ACC. Those are your four conferences left standing. It's the first time in tournament history that every team in the Sweet 16 is from a major conference. Nearly half of the field is from the SEC. 7 of the 16 coming from that conference after their record 14 bids on Selection Sunday. Among the familiar faces this round, Tom Izzo and Michigan State. Izzo, the only head coach remaining who's won a national title with his current school. He led the Spartans to the Natty in 2000 with Jason Richardson on his roster. Fast forward 25 years, another Richardson, his son Jace, is on the floor for the Spartans. Izzo and John Calipari looking to continue their ascent up the all-time tournament wins list. Both coaches appearing in the Sweet 16 for the 16th time. Coach Cal taking Arkansas there in his first season. 4 more wins this month, and they'll be cutting down the nets in San Antonio. All right, looking ahead to Thursday and Friday's Sweet 16, we say hello to CBS Sports college basketball analyst Chip Patterson. Chip, before we look ahead, let's take a little bit of stock of how we got here. Which team left standing has been the biggest surprise to you so far?
Russ, this has to be Arkansas. And it's not just that they are the 10 seed that is here, the only double-digit seed. It is the story of Arkansas, because it was not that long ago that we were here having the conversation about whether Arkansas was even going to make the NCAA tournament, whether they even had the ability to string together the wins that they needed to get into the bubble picture, then to be safe from the bubble, and then to see the way that they won in these games. It was the fact that they won against quality opponents, taking out Bill Self in Kansas, taking out Rick Pitino in St. John's. And Russ, they did it all while shooting a combined 8 for 43 from behind the arc. So it's not like this Arkansas team just got hot and blazed its way past a couple of higher seeds. This is a team that has heart. This is a team that is ready for war. This is a team that has real length and athleticism to cause problems for anybody. And so the fact that they were able to get past those two opponents, Kansas and St. John's, and do so without being overwhelmingly impressive, they just did all the tiny things well. John Calipari's been talking a lot about how this team has found one heartbeat. Well, they certainly have shown that with the connectivity that they've had through the opening weekend. So Arkansas, a team that was so disjointed through the year, to be this connected, big surprise, but a surprise that everyone's happy about there in Fayetteville.
Yeah, probably the furthest look where we came from of the whole season. It took them a long time just to win a game in the SEC this season. 8 games over 2 days, 16 teams, all from major conferences. So they're all familiar names. What's the most intriguing of the matchups to you, and why?
Oh, it's got to be Tennessee and Kentucky. So many layers to this. It just beyond on being an all SEC matchup. So they played 2 times already, but Kentucky's won them both. Kentucky is the lower seed. Kentucky finds itself the underdog in this game. Tennessee, trying to get this win, also has so much extra weight on it, because on one side, we've got Kentucky's Mark Pope in his first year. You got to think that he's going to have a lot more cracks at this. On the other side, Rick Barnes, where we are asking the questions, how many NCAA tournament runs does Rick Barnes have left as he tries to chase another Final Four appearance? Something that has eluded him since he arrived in Knoxville and turned Tennessee into one of the most consistent winners in college basketball. So a coach that is nearing the end of his run, a former Kentucky star who is now the head coach beginning his run, and all of that with the context that the Wildcats took both of the results in the regular season. A lot of tasty stuff to dig into as we look at this third meeting between Tennessee and Kentucky.
Yeah, certainly a familiar matchup, a lot of familiar programs. We're still learning about so many of these players, though, who have a chance to really do something special on a national stage. Who's one player worth a watch here in the Sweet 16?
Well, we saw the highlight earlier. We've seen the highlight a million times. But, Russ, I got a couple more reasons why we need to pay attention to Derek Queen. Because the Maryland star freshman has just rocketed up the NBA draft boards. He's attracting a lot of that attention. He has been one of the maybe 3 or 4 best freshmen in the entire country. And, yes, I understand the company that he keeps when we talk about that. But he is also a player that will be impactful in the way the game goes against Florida in the Sweet 16. Because while Florida has depth upon depth upon depth at the front court positions. You know, they tried out Ruben Chinyelu. They tried out Thomas Hall, Alex Condon. They've got bodies on bodies on bodies. Derek Queen kind of holds that down himself. And the Crab Five don't lean into their bench very much. So Derek Queen needs to be able to be effective against all of that rotation of Florida's bigs. He needs to avoid foul trouble because he is so important in making sure on offense and on defense that Maryland's going to have an answer and a presence inside. Now, Derek Queen is good enough that he could take over this game, that each one of those bigs comes in, Chinyelu, Condon, he's just like next, and takes them all to the hoop. He is that good. But he is that impactful in this game. Derek Queen needs to be a superstar. He needs to stay out of foul trouble. He needs to stay in the game because Florida's got real depth at the front court that it's going to challenge him and Julian Reese.
I know when the brackets first came out, our friends at Sportsline were very high on Maryland as a possible upset pick over Florida. We'll see how Derek Queen and the Terps can do against the top seed in their region. All the 1s and 2s are in the Sweet 16. If you had to put one of the 1s on upset alert, who would it be and why?
It'd be the #1 overall seed Auburn Tigers. The body of work was deserving of being the #1 overall seed. And for that, they get an extremely friendly location for the South Regional, being in Atlanta, you know, so close to Auburn's campus and a mecca for a lot of Auburn graduates. But they are facing a Michigan team that is going to present some real problems with the twin towers of Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden. Because John Broome at one time was in the running with Cooper Flagg for National Player of the Year. But as Auburn has gone 3-3 over its last 6 games, they have slumped a little bit on the inside. And so how does John Broome play? How does the rest of this Auburn team play defensively? Now, if they can force turnovers from Michigan, something that has hurt Michigan a little bit before, then yeah, they can win this game handily. But if they cannot, and Trey Donaldson, who you see right here, continues to be a real leader at the guard position. Roddy Gale came off the bench, gave him great minutes in the win against Texas A&M. Michigan has won so many close games. They built up the confidence. And that head coach, Dusty May, yeah, we know he can win a few NCAA tournament games. He's shown us that before. So I think that Auburn really needs to flip a switch and find the gear that had them riding at the top of the sport, because the recent results, the last 6 or 7 games, are not the same form that seed represents.
All right, just one more day till we're talking about results and looking ahead to possible Final Four matchups. But first things first, CBS Sports college hoops analyst Chip Patterson, thank you so much. We've got 8 games coming your way over the next 2 days, Thursday and Friday. It's the Sweet 16 on the networks of CBS, TBS, and True TV. It's all streaming live on the March Madness Live app, and full highlights, reaction, and analysis, as always, right here on CBS Sports HQ.